Why do people treat gold as something precious and water as something common, even though both are essential for life? The answer is the only law you need to be respected: the law of scarcity. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power is not simply about wealth, force, or titles. True power lies in making yourself rare, valuable, and difficult to replace. In this video, you're going to learn how scarcity shapes human desire, how leaders and manipulators use it, and how you can apply this forbidden principle in your own life. Stay until the end, because I'll show you how to flip this law into your personal advantage without becoming a prisoner of it. Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Florence, a city that was both magnificent and merciless. Behind its art, beauty, and wealth was a brutal reality: constant competition, betrayals among noble families, shifting alliances, and power struggles that destroyed entire dynasties overnight. It was in this environment that Machiavelli sharpened his vision of human nature and uncovered one of its darkest truths: people crave what is rare, and they dismiss what is abundant. To Machiavelli, this law was not just political, but universal. Think about it. Water is the foundation of life, yet because it flows freely, most people treat it as common. Gold, on the other hand, has little practical use compared to water, but because it is scarce, it becomes an obsession. Humanity is not ruled by logic, it is ruled by perception, and perception bends to the law of scarcity. He observed that rulers who were constantly present among their subjects, always available, always speaking, slowly lost their aura of power. Familiarity made them seem ordinary. Their words, once heavy with authority, began to sound like background noise. But rulers who appeared less often, only in decisive moments, were perceived as almost larger than life. Their absence created hunger. Their silence made their words echo. Scarcity turned them into legends. Machiavelli warned princes and leaders that generosity, if constant and excessive, was dangerous. Give too much of yourself, and people will come to expect it. Worse, they will stop respecting it. A favor given rarely is treasured. A favor given every day becomes invisible. He understood that the human mind confuses rarity with value. The more difficult something is to obtain, the more people project significance onto it. This is why he advised rulers to withhold as much as they revealed, to make their presence something to be anticipated. To be predictable was to be weak. To be scarce was to be powerful. The same logic applied not only to rulers, but to anyone seeking influence. If you were always too available, too eager, or too willing, you were dismissed. But if you controlled your appearances carefully, you became mysterious, magnetic, and commanding. And this wasn't just strategy, it was psychology. Scarcity activates desire because the human brain is wired to chase what feels uncertain, limited, or slipping away. What is common and abundant loses its shine, no matter how essential. What is rare becomes irresistible, even if it is useless. This paradox has governed kings, shaped markets, manipulated crowds, and decided the fate of nations. Machiavelli's insight is as true today as it was in the Renaissance. Attention, respect, desire, all of them follow the same rule. When you give too much of yourself, you make yourself ordinary. But when you know how to step back, when to stay silent, and when to appear at the right moment, you transform into something others cannot ignore. The lesson is simple but brutal. Scarcity is not just about economics. It is the core of power, influence, and respect. What we cannot easily have becomes what we desperately want. Think about love, friendship, or influence. Why is it that the person who ignores you suddenly becomes more desirable than the one who constantly chases after you? Why do luxury brands burn, bury, or lock away products instead of simply offering them at a discount? Why do the greatest leaders of history speak rarely, and yet when they finally do, their words echo through centuries like thunder rolling across mountains? Machiavelli understood a universal law of human nature. The less you give, the more people value it. Scarcity seduces the mind. It sharpens attention. It pulls desire out of people like a hidden magnet. The moment something is withdrawn, we begin to crave it. The less accessible your energy, your time, or even your affection, the more powerful it becomes in the eyes of others. This is why kings, princes, and rulers of Machiavelli's time rarely exposed themselves to the masses. They cloaked their presence in mystery. They appeared at chosen moments, dressed in power, surrounded by ritual and spectacle. Every gesture, every word was calculated and rare. And because of that rarity, it carried immense weight. When a king entered a room, silence followed. When he spoke, even a single sentence could ignite wars, forge alliances, or inspire loyalty. His scarcity was his strength. Now compare this to the opposite. A ruler who was constantly available, constantly speaking, constantly showing himself, eventually lost the aura of authority. Familiarity eroded mystique. As the old saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. When people see you too much, they begin to believe they have already consumed you, that they fully understand you, and so they no longer feel awe or curiosity. You become ordinary in their eyes, and ordinariness is the death of influence. But scarcity flips the script. It builds suspense. It creates anticipation. It makes people wonder, what will he do next? What is she hiding? What am I missing? It leaves a gap in their minds, and that gap becomes a craving. Humans cannot tolerate uncertainty. They want closure. They want answers. By mastering scarcity, you deny them easy closure. You make yourself a puzzle that they long to solve. Think about modern life. Why do people chase after celebrities who barely acknowledge their fans? Why are the words of a reclusive thinker, artist, or billionaire dissected for hidden meaning, while the endless chatter of ordinary voices goes ignored? It is not simply about wealth or fame. It is about controlled rarity. By giving less, they ensure that every word, every appearance, every gesture carries the illusion of infinite value. Even in personal relationships, the same law applies. The friend who is always available at your call often fades into the background, taken for granted. The lover who suffocates you with constant presence loses the spark of mystery. But the one who withdraws, who creates space, suddenly draws your attention. Their absence makes you wonder. Their silence becomes louder than any words. Scarcity is not coldness. It is strategy. It is the art of making your presence feel precious. And here is the paradox. What is most common, most abundant, is often ignored. Water flows freely from the tap, and so we do not bow before it. Air surrounds us constantly, and yet we rarely stop to cherish it. But gold, rare, difficult to obtain, we treat as divine. The logic of value is not in utility, but in scarcity. Machiavelli recognized this and turned it into a tool for power. If you are everywhere, if you give everything, if you are available to everyone, you risk becoming invisible. You become noise in a world already drowning in noise. But if you master scarcity, if you know when to hold back, when to disappear, when to reappear with precision, then every gesture you make becomes an event. Every word becomes a prophecy. Every silence becomes a lesson. This is the seduction of rarity, and those who understand it can shape not only their relationships, but entire empires. But here's the dark side. Scarcity is not only powerful, it's dangerous. It can manipulate entire societies, bending their will without them ever realizing it. Think about propaganda. Think about false shortages. Think about economic manipulation. Again and again throughout history, leaders, corporations, and even intimate partners have weaponized scarcity. They know a brutal truth. If people believe something is running out, love, food, opportunities, even freedom itself, they will do almost anything to secure it. Fear of loss drives people harder than hope of gain. Machiavelli himself observed that rulers who wished to maintain power could deliberately restrict access, not just to resources, but to favor, recognition, and affection. A prince could appear cold, withholding, distant, making his approval rare, and his subjects, desperate for that approval, would chase it with devotion. By giving little, he gained everything. Scarcity became his invisible leash. But the danger runs deeper. Scarcity has the power to cloud judgment. When people are desperate for what feels rare, they stop thinking rationally. They begin to justify actions they would never have considered otherwise. Economies collapse not only because of lack of goods, but because of the belief in lack. People riot not simply because of hunger, but because of the fear that food will soon disappear. Lovers cling to toxic relationships not because of genuine love, but because they fear losing the rare scraps of affection they've been conditioned to treasure. This is why scarcity is called a dangerous power. It overrides logic. It bypasses reason. It speaks directly to the primal brain that fears loss more than it celebrates abundance. The simple suggestion that something might run out, whether it's a product, a chance, or a relationship, can move people faster and more powerfully than any promise of plenty. Consider modern marketing. Why do companies use phrases like limited edition, only a few left, or offer expires soon? It's not because the product is actually rare. It's because the illusion of scarcity triggers urgency. People buy not because they truly need the item, but because they fear losing the chance. Their freedom of choice has already been hijacked. Now expand this principle to governments and politics. Scarcity of resources, whether artificially created or naturally occurring, has been used as a weapon of control for centuries. Bread, oil, land, water, when these become scarce or are made to appear scarce, people surrender freedoms, obey stricter rules, or even go to war. When scarcity rules perception, rulers no longer need chains. The people chain themselves, driven by the terror of going without. And scarcity is not only external, it is psychological. How many times have you seen a person withhold love, affection, or approval just to keep control over another? Parents do it. Partners do it. Friends do it. By making their affection rare, they make it precious. And by making it precious, they make the other dependent. Scarcity in relationships can be a subtle form of domination, an invisible cage built not of walls, but of emotions. Machiavelli would have warned us, the hand that controls scarcity, even if it offers nothing, appears mighty, because once you decide what is rare, you decide what is valuable. And once you decide what is valuable, you control not just wealth, not just power, but the very emotions that move human beings. That is the true danger of scarcity. It does not need to be real to enslave. It only needs to be believed. And once that belief takes root, people surrender their reason, their choices, and even their freedom. So how do you use this law without abusing it? The key is to apply it with strategy, not cruelty. Scarcity, when used wisely, isn't about harming others or playing manipulative games. It's about understanding your own value, protecting it, and allowing others to recognize it too. First, in relationships, don't overgive your time, your attention, or your energy. When you are constantly available, your presence begins to lose its weight. Instead, make your presence meaningful. Step back at times so that when you do step forward, it matters. The rare moments of your undivided attention, your love, or even your silence will carry a power they never could if you are always there. Second, in career, don't just aim to be good. Aim to be rare. Specialize in skills that are difficult to find, talents that few people are willing to master. The world does not reward common effort. It rewards rare excellence. A person who can do what thousands of others can do is replaceable. But the one who possesses a unique skill set, who has knowledge that is scarce, becomes invaluable. Third, in influence, choose your words with precision. Machiavelli knew that a leader who speaks constantly is soon ignored, but a leader who speaks rarely, who saves their words for the right moment, speaks with thunder. Silence makes people lean closer. Scarcity of speech makes every sentence carry weight. You don't have to flood the world with your opinions. You only have to speak when it truly matters, and the world will remember. Scarcity, then, is not about manipulation. It is about self-respect. It is about realizing that when you make yourself too available, you cheapen your own value. But when you hold back strategically, when you reserve your presence, your skills, your voice, people begin to notice. They begin to crave what you offer. They begin to treat you with the respect that constant availability never earns. This is how you apply the dangerous, powerful law of scarcity in your life. Not to dominate, not to deceive, but to elevate your worth in the eyes of others and, most importantly, in your own eyes. So here's the brutal truth. People don't value what is always available. They never have, and they never will. They value what is rare. They chase what they cannot easily touch. They worship what they fear they might lose. Machiavelli revealed this centuries ago, and yet most people still live as if they've never heard the lesson. They give themselves away too cheaply. They flood the world with their time, their energy, their presence, their words. And then they wonder why they are ignored. But here is the revelation. Scarcity creates power. The less available something is, the more magnetic it becomes. Gold is not valuable because it glitters. It is valuable because it is scarce. Leaders are not respected because they are everywhere. They are respected because they are seen only at the right moment. Influence does not come from abundance without boundaries. Abundance without restraint leads only to weakness, to contempt, to invisibility. The real question is not whether scarcity works. It always works. The question is whether you will master it or remain trapped in the illusion that giving endlessly will make people love you, respect you, or follow you. So let me ask you, will you continue to give yourself away freely, to be taken for granted? Or will you step into the dangerous art of becoming rare? Will you dare to withhold, to create mystery, to protect your value, and in doing so, draw others toward you like moths to a flame? If this message struck a chord with you, if you felt the truth behind these words, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't just listen, engage. Share what this law of scarcity means in your life and how you might begin to apply it. And if you are ready to go deeper into the forbidden psychology of power, the hidden insights that shape leaders, influence nations, and control desire itself, subscribe now. Turn on notifications, because the next video will peel back another layer of this ancient truth. This is The Last Thinker. And remember, if you control scarcity, you control desire. And if you control desire, you shape destiny itself.